Hi, I'm Nick Busey, and today we're going to look at how to evolve the development and deployment workflow of your team from something like riding a skateboard to something more like driving a car. Starting with the simplest solution and working our way up to some of the most advanced, we'll explore the use of on demand environments as a way of providing a fast and effective development experience to your team. At their most basic level, an environment is any machine or group of machines that serves an application, API, or service. Your laptop is an environment, some might say the best environment. Hey, works on my machine. An entire data center could theoretically be one environment. This might be the production environment for a global scale service, Facebook, Amazon, etc. And everything in between, a single VM, a bare metal server, or an entire Kubernetes cluster can all be an environment. So, what is the problem? You start building a project, all is well, the team starts growing larger, the app grows more complex, and it's getting more crowded in your sandbox environment. If you've ever said or heard phrases like, is anyone using QA too? Or when can we update staging? That's when you know you've hit a bottleneck. So, how do you maintain ease of testing and collaboration as you scale? One way to do this is to use ephemeral environments. These are temporary environments that are created on demand and then destroyed when they are no longer needed. Ephemeral environments can reduce developer burnout by removing bottlenecks and reducing the time it takes to ship features and bug fixes. When developers have to wait hours, days, or sometimes even longer for test environments to be created or updated, it can slow down the development process and create frustration. Ephemeral environments remove this bottleneck by allowing developers to create their own environments on demand without having to wait for someone else to do it for them. Environments as a service are such a force multiplier for modern software teams that, in my opinion, it's moved beyond a nice to have and into the realm of table stakes. If you don't provide your team with on demand environments, you're going to be left in the dust by competitors who do. So let's talk about how to implement this. There are many different tools available to accomplish on demand environments with varying levels of complexity and functionality. We'll start with an example skateboard approach and discuss more advanced tooling until we get to the car. The simplest option is to just build your environments by hand. This requires a lot of manual work, but it does work. Typically done on an on-premise server or a cloud VPS, this is generally the first stop for most teams. You make a QA or staging environment, maybe both if you're feeling fancy, and call it good for the next decade or so. You'll notice that there's nothing on demand or ephemeral about this. You will be bottlenecked by the number of environments you have, and you have to manually coordinate who can use them and when, which adds overhead. In real-world usage, your production and staging environment will generally diverge rather rapidly unless you expend consistent effort to prevent that. Everything from software and dependency version differences to the much more common data issues. Data issues often crop up at this level. Seed files are notoriously difficult to wrangle into actually representing anything close to what production data would look like. This often leads to bugs slipping through the cracks because the data just isn't there to expose the bug in the first place. Seed files all too often only cover the happy path of what data should be, not what it is in reality. This is still much better than just testing on your laptop and pushing straight to production. Having any test environment available is definitely better than nothing. The next step up is the bicycle. This is where you use tools like GitLab and Rancher to create environments on demand. This can be done automatically on a per branch basis or through a button push. Both methods have their trade-offs. Automatic creation, you may end up utilizing server resources that are never actually used by humans, but with push button creation, you often add a delay, which can be significant, from the time the button is pressed until it's ready to be used. This is something I've done in the past at startups I've founded, and it can get you a lot of mileage. This approach is more automated and can save time and effort by reducing the toil of coordinating who and what gets to use which environment when, while still giving you a lot of control over the environment. You will have to do quite a bit of initial setup to get things working correctly, but once you do, it should be reasonably effective for some time. Your issues with this approach are still a high level of maintenance overhead, and when things go wrong, you don't have anyone to ask for help. If you want a bit more support and automation, but still want to mostly do things yourself, products like GitHub Codespaces can fit this niche. It integrates tightly with your existing workflow, but you'll still need to know enough about how your infrastructure is designed to be able to configure everything correctly. Additionally, while you reduce coordination overhead, the data issues mentioned earlier likely still persist. More advanced still than the bicycle is the motorcycle, something like Heroku, to automate environment deployments. These are cloud-based platforms that provide a simple interface for deploying and managing applications. This can be a good way to get a lot of functionality really quickly, but can lead to high levels of vendor lock-in and lower amounts of flexibility. This stage is generally going to be the most useful for teams without much or any dedicated infrastructure, DevOps, or SRE resources. And while requiring less maintenance than a home-baked deployment solution, it can lead to some pretty high bills. Again, issues of data integrity are still likely to be a problem at this stage if seed files are your go-to method, but this can be mitigated by integrating more tightly with other cloud services and database solutions. Which brings us to the car. The car is the most fully featured environment solution that we're going to discuss today. Currently the bleeding edge of infrastructure tech, these are fully fleshed out, enterprise-ready environments as a service companies. There are many companies in the space already today, including Octeto, Ergomate, Bunny Shell, Mass Driver, Shipyard, Acorn, Tugboat, and Release. This stage may seem like overkill for smaller teams, but I would argue the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. Having as close to production environments as possible will increase the velocity of teams of any size and give you confidence when deploying new code that it's already been tested in a production-like environment. You get a lot of functionality off the shelf with all the power and flexibility of deploying to your own infrastructure. Depending on the provider, you can use Helm charts with your Kubernetes cluster to automatically spin up and tear down environments that mirrors production down to the component level. The main drawback here is going to be cost. Spinning up an environment that is almost like production can cost, well, almost as much as production. Realistically, though, you can often get away with much smaller machines and fewer of them. With certain providers, you can also automatically pause and resume environments in off hours to save money. This stage is also much easier to avoid the aforementioned data integrity issues. With features such as Release's instant data sets, you can give your developers and testers production-like data. This is often done by taking a nightly snapshot of production, and if necessary, running it through something like Tonic AI to scrub out any personally identifiable information. Then, anytime a new environment comes up, you have a less than day-old copy of production data. This can really help with testing and catching bugs, as you are using real-world data, not just the happy path defined in your seed files. Many services also offer things like remote development, where developers can edit code on their local machine, and those changes are synced directly and immediately to the cloud environment. It really is the best of both worlds as far as speed of iteration and environment correctness. Regardless of whether you choose to go with a skateboard or car, something in between, the most important thing is to find the approach that works best for your team and your product. There's almost certainly not going to be just one or two test environments. Sure, they work, but things can be so much better. It's also important to continually reevaluate your needs as your team grows, along with the complexity of your product. Maybe the skateboard worked when it was 3 engineers, but now that the team has tripled in size, you may want to be looking for a more accommodating ride. Switching vehicles can be intimidating and is not without its cost, but it's far more costly to try and push a skateboard at highway speeds. By providing your team with fast, efficient, and fulfilling environments, you can help ensure that they stay engaged and motivated, which can lead to increased productivity, avoiding burnout, and providing better outcomes for your product and ultimately your users. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at nick@release.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.